stories. Oh! Hi! It's me again, it's John. Your story... bedtime... Yeah. Right. So, you come back to James and the Giant Peach, part 5. Remember, the weekend is off, and then we'll come back on Monday and continue from there. So... And what's going to happen today? Where have we... Yes. Yesterday, the Peach fell off a cliff and went down, 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 and smack, and hit the water hard. Okay? So, we're going to carry on from there. Marvellous. Hello, Peter. Hello. Hello. He's on every day. It's good, it's good, it's good. Right. Okay. James and the Giant Peach. Chapter 17. And a warning, the chapters are long today, so we'll be here for a while, so you can stop it halfway through if you want to. Come back to it later on. Right, chapter 17. At this moment, the scene inside the Peach itself was one of indescribable chaos. James Henry Trotter was lying bruised and battered on the floor of the room amongst a tangled mass of centipede and earthworm and spider and ladybird and glowworm and old green grasshopper. In the whole history of the world, no travellers had ever made or had more of a terrible journey than these unfortunate creatures. Bear with me 1 second. You got that piece of paper? Oh, yes. We need my piece of paper, you see. It's got all the accents on it for the characters. That's right. Just disappeared somewhere, right? These unfortunate creatures carrying on. Never a more crazy journey. It has started out well, with much laughing and shouting, and for the first few seconds, as the Peach began to roll slowly forwards, nobody had minded being tumbled about a little bit. And when it went bump, and the centipede had shouted, "That was Aunt Sponge!" and then bump again, and "That was Aunt Spiker!" there had been a tremendous burst of cheering all around, as you can imagine. But as soon as the Peach rolled out of the garden and began to go down the steep hill, rushing and plunging and bounding madly downwards, and the whole thing became a nightmare. James found himself being flung up against the ceiling, then back onto the floor, then sideways against the wall, then up onto the ceiling, and up and down and back and forth and round, and all at the same time, all the other creatures were flying through the air in every direction. And so were the chairs and the sofa, not to mention the 42 boots belonging to the centipede. Everything, and all of them, will be rattled around like peas inside an enormous rattle that was being rattled by a mad giant who refused to stop rattling. To make it worse, something went wrong with the glowworm's lighting system, and the room was in pitchy darkness. There were screams and yells and curses and cries of pain, and everything kept going round and round. And once James made a frantic grab at some thick bars sticking out from the wall, only to find out that they were a couple of the centipede's legs. "Let go, you idiot!" shouted the centipede, kicking himself free, and James was promptly flung across the room into the old green grasshopper's horny lap. Because he's got big hairs. Twice he got tangled up in Miss Spider's legs. A horrible business. And towards the end, the poor earthworm, who was cracking himself like a whip every time he flew through the air from one side of the room to the other, coiled himself around James's body in a panic and refused to unwind. You can imagine being a long worm. Poor guy. Oh, it was frantic and a terrible trip. But it was over now, and the room was suddenly very still and quiet. Everybody was beginning, slowly and painfully, to disentangle himself or herself from everybody else. This picture. Okay? Yes. Oh, the glowworm's still on the ceiling. "Let's have some light!" shouted the centipede. "Yes," they cried. "Give us some light." "I'm trying," answered the poor glowworm. "I'm doing my best. Please be patient." They all waited in silence. Then a faint greenish light began to glimmer out of the glowworm's tail, and this gradually became stronger and stronger until it was anyway enough to see by. Interesting writing choice, but never mind. "Some great journey," the centipede said, limping across the room. "I shall never be the same again," murmured the earthworm. "Nor I," the ladybird said. "It's taken years off me life." "But, my dear friends," cried the old green grasshopper, trying to be cheerful, "we are there!" "Where?" they asked. Where is there?" "I don't know," the old green grasshopper said, "but I'll bet it's somewhere good." "We're probably at the bottom of a coal mine," the earthworm said gloomily. "We certainly went down and down and down very suddenly at the last moment. I felt it in my stomach. I still feel it." "Perhaps we're in the middle of a beautiful country full of songs and music," the old green grasshopper said. "Or near the seashore," said James eagerly, "with lots of other children down on the sand for me to play with." "Pardon me," murmured the ladybird, turning a trifle pale, "but am I wrong in thinking that we seem to be bobbing up and down?" "Bobbing up and down?" they cried. "What on earth do you mean?" "Yeah, you're still giddy from the journey," the old green grasshopper told her. "You'll get over it in a minute. Is everybody ready to go upstairs now? First?" Sorry, just trying to reconnect. "For heaven's sake, let's not go through all of that nonsense again," the earthworm said. "Let's all lend the centipede a hand and get it over with," the ladybird said. "Come on." So they did, all except Miss Spider, who set about weaving a long rope ladder that would reach from the floor up to a hole in the ceiling. The old green grasshopper had wisely said they must not risk going out of the side entrance, where they didn't know where they were, but must first go up onto the top of the peach and have a look around. I'm learning from this just as much as you guys are. So half an hour later, when the rope ladder had been finished and hung, and the 40-second boot had been laced neatly onto the centipede's 42nd foot, they were all ready to go out. Amidst mounting excitement and shouts of, "Here we go, boys! The promised land! I can't wait to see it!" the whole company climbed up the ladder one by one and disappeared into a dark, soggy tunnel in the ceiling that went steeply, almost vertically, upward. Chapter 18. A minute later, they were out in the open, standing on the very top of the peach, near the stem, blinking their eyes in the strong sunlight and peering nervously around. "What happened? Where are we? But this is impossible! Unbelievable! Terrible!" "I told you we were bobbing up and down," the ladybird said. "We're in the middle of the sea," cried James, and indeed they were. A strong current and a high wind had carried the peach so quickly away from the shore that already the land was out of sight. Well, it took them half an hour to take the boots off. Well, put them back on, didn't it? Half an hour, good. All around them lay the vast black ocean, deep and hungry. Little waves were bibbling against the side of the peach. Bibbling, that's right. "But how did this happen? They cried. "Where are the fields? Where are the woods? Where's England? Where is England?" Nobody, not even James, could understand how in the world a thing like this could have come about. "Ladies and gentlemen," the old green grasshopper said, trying very hard to keep the fear and disappointment out of his voice, "I'm afraid that we find ourselves in rather an awkward situation." "Awkward?" cried the earthworm. "My dear old grasshopper, we're finished. Every one of us is about to perish. I may be blind, you know, but that much I can see quite clearly." "Off with me boots!" shouted the centipede. "I cannot swim without me boots on. Or I cannot swim with them on, rather." "I can't swim at all," cried the ladybird. "Nor can I," wailed the glowworm. "Nor I," said Miss Spider. "None of us three girls can swim a single stroke." "But you won't have to swim," said James. Oh, he said that calmly, apparently. "We're floating beautifully, and sooner or later a ship is bound to come along and pick us up." They all stared at him in amazement. "Are you quite sure that we're not sinking?" the ladybird asked. "Of course I'm sure," answered James. "Go and look for yourselves." They all ran over to the side of the peach and peered down at the water below. "The boy is quite right," said the old green grasshopper. "We're floating beautifully. Now we must all sit down and keep perfectly calm. Everything will be all right in the end." "What absolute nonsense!" cried the earthworm. "Nothing is ever all right in the end, and well you know it." "Poor earthworm," Ladybird said, whispering in James's ear. "He loves to make everything into a disaster. He hates to be happy. He's only happy when he's gloomy. Now isn't that odd? But then I suppose just being an earthworm is enough to make a person pretty gloomy, don't you agree? If this peach is not going to sink, said the earthworm, and if we're not going to be drowned, then every one of us is going to starve to death instead. Do you realise we haven't had a thing to eat since yesterday morning? By golly, he's right, said the centipede. For once, just once, earthworm's right. Is there a picture? No. Of course I'm right, said the earthworm. And we're not likely to find anything round here either. We shall get thinner and thinner and thirstier and thirstier, and we shall all die a slow and grisly death from starvation. I'm dying already. I'm slowly shriveling up for want of food. Personally, I'd rather drown. But good heavens, you must be blind, said James. You know very well that I am blind, snapped the earthworm. There's no need to rub it in. No, I didn't mean that, said James quickly. I'm sorry. But can't you see that... See? Shouted the earthworm. How can I see if I'm blind? James took a deep, slow breath. Can't you realise, he said patiently, that we have enough food here to last us for weeks and weeks? Where? They said. Where? Why, the peach, of course. Our whole ship is made of food. There's a peach. Look at it. No, don't. Gone lost me place now, haven't I? Jumping Jehoshaphat, they cried. We never thought of that. My dear James, said the old green grasshopper, laying a front leg affectionately on James's shoulder. I don't know what we'd do without you. You are so clever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are saved again. We most certainly are not, said the earthworm. You must be crazy, you can't eat the ship. It's the only thing that's keeping us up. We shall starve if we don't. Hang on, what accent was that? That was northern mixed with Welsh. We shall starve if we don't, said the centipede. There we go. And we shall drown if we do, cried the earthworm. Oh dear, said the old green grasshopper. Now we're worse off than before. Couldn't we just eat a little bit of it? Asked Miss Spider. I'm so dreadfully hungry. You can eat all you want, James answered. It would take us weeks and weeks to make any sort of dent in this enormous peach. Surely you can see that. There's a picture, look. I tell you what, going from Welsh to Northern is incredibly challenging, but very fun. Good heavens, he's right again, cried the old green grasshopper, clapping his hands. It would take weeks and weeks, of course it would. But let's not go making a lot of holes all over the deck. I think we better simply scoop it out of the tunnel over there, the one that we just came up by. An excellent idea, said the ladybird. What you looking so worried about, earthworm? The centipede asked. What's the problem? The problem is, the earthworm said, the problem is... Well, the problem is that there is no problem. Hang on, wait, there was no... Oh, for goodness sake, this is difficult. The problem is that there is no problem. There we go, that was Welsh, wasn't it? I've got some Welsh friends that are going to be very cross with me, but never mind. Everyone burst out laughing. Cheer up, earthworm, they said. Come and eat. And they all went over to the tunnel entrance and began scooping out great chunks of juicy, golden-coloured peach flesh. Peach squash is my favourite squash. Oh, marvellous. The centipede was stuffing it into his mouth. Delicious, said the centipede. And the old green grasshopper said something similar. Just fabulous, said the glowworm. Oh my, said the ladybird primly. What a heavenly taste! She looked up at James and she smiled, and James smiled back at her. They sat down on the deck together, both of them chewing away happily. You know, James, the ladybird said, up until this moment, I've never in my life tasted anything except those tiny little green flies that live on rose bushes. Aphids. They have a perfectly delightful flavour, but this peach is even better. Isn't it glorious? Miss Spider said, coming over to join them. Personally, I've always thought that a big juicy caught in the web bluebottle was the finest dinner in the world, until I tasted this. What a flavour! The centipede cried. It's terrific. There's nothing like it. There never has been. And I should know because I personally have tasted all the finest foods in the world. Whereupon the centipede, with his mouth full of peach and with juice running down all over his chin, suddenly burst into song. And there he is. Look at his glasses and his silly hat. I'm going to totally plagiarize and copyright this song tune from the audiobook version of this story that I listened to when I was a child. All right? So I'm not making any money from this, so never mind. I've eaten many strange and scrumptious dishes in me time, like jellied nuts and dandy prats and earwigs cooked in slime, and mice with rice are really nice when roasted in their prime. But don't forget to sprinkle them with just a pinch of grime. Who shall sing next? The Welshman. I've eaten fresh mug burgers by the greatest cooks there are, and scrambled dregs and stinkbugs' eggs and hornets stewed in tar, and pails of snails and lizards' tails and beetles by the jar. A beetle is improved by just a splash of vinegar. Who's next? The Ladybird. I often eat boiled slobbages. They're grand when served beside minced doodlebugs and curried slugs. And have you ever tried mosquitoes' toes and onefish roes most delicately fried? The only trouble is they disagree with my inside. And now for Miss Spider. I'm mad for crispy wasp stings on a piece of buttered toast, and pickled spines of porcupines, and then a gorgeous roast of dragon's flesh, well hung, not fresh. It costs £1 at most, and comes to you in barrels if you order it by post. Who have we not done? Oh, let's try the glowworm. I crave the Southern American. I crave the tasty tentacles of. Oh, hang on, that's. Boy, howdy. Okay, I crave the tasty tentacles of octopi for tea. I love hot dogs. I love hot frogs. Surely you'll agree. A plate of soil with engine oil is a super recipe. I hardly need to mention that it's practically free. Oh boy, now the grasshopper. For dinner on my birthday, shall I tell you what I chose? Hot noodles made from poodles and a slice of garden hose, and a rather smelly jelly made from armadillo's toes. The jelly is delicious, but you have to hold your nose. And finally, the centipede. Ooh. Now comes the burden of my speech. These foods are rare beyond compare, some are right out of reach. But there's no doubt I'd go without 1,000,000 plates of each, for one small mite, one tiny bite, of this fantastic peach. Whew! Everybody was feeling very happy now. The sun was shining brightly out of the soft blue sky, and the day was calm. The giant peach, with the sunlight glinting on its side, was like a massive golden ball sailing upon a silver sea. I need a weekend after all of that, good grief. But let's carry on, chapter 19. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, so 2 more chapters to go, and then it's the weekend. Look! Cried the centipede, just as they were finishing their meal. Look at that funny thin black thing gliding through the water over there. They all swung around to look. There's their picture. There are 2 of them, said Miss Spider. There are lots of them, said the ladybird. What are they? Asked the earthworm, getting worried. They must be some kind of fish, said the old green grasshopper. Perhaps they've come along to say hello. The sharks! Oh, that's the earthworm. The sharks, cried the earthworm. I'll bet you anything you like that they're sharks, and they've come along to eat us up. What absolute rot, the centipede said, but his voice seemed suddenly to become a little shaky, and he wasn't laughing. I am positive that they're sharks, said the earthworm. I just know that they're sharks. And so, in actual fact, did everybody else. But they were too frightened to admit it. There was a short silence. They all peered down anxiously at the sharks, who were cruising slowly round and round the peach. Just assuming that they are sharks, the centipede said. There still can't possibly be any danger if we stay up here. But even as he spoke, one of those thin black fins suddenly changed direction and came cutting swiftly through the water right up to the side of the peach itself. The shark paused and stared up at the company with small evil eyes. Go away, they shouted. Go away! Go away, you filthy beast! Slowly, almost lazily, the shark opened his mouth, which was big enough to have swallowed a perambulator, and made a lunge at the peach. What's a perambulator? Should I know what that is? What's a perambulator? She's going to look it up. Right. Picture of the peach. Look how big that peach is. Look, there they are on the top. Look. That's a big peach, and there are the sharks. Perambulator.
Old-fashioned term for pram.
An old-fashioned term for a pram. There you go, you learned something new. Well, at least I did. So a shark can eat a perambulator. Okay. They all watched aghast. And now, as though at a signal from the leader and the other sharks, they came swimming in towards the peach. And they clustered around it and began to attack it furiously. There must have been 20 or 30 of them at least, all pushing and fighting and lashing their tails and churning the water into a froth. Trying to reconnect again. They will eat up the whole peach, and then there'll be nothing left for us to stand on, and they'll start on us. She's right, shouted the ladybird. We're lost forever. Oh, I don't want to be eaten, wailed the earthworm. But they'll take me first of all because I'm so fat and juicy and I have no bones. Oh, is there nothing we can do? Asked Ladybird, appealing to James. Surely you can think of a way out of this. Suddenly they were all looking at James. Think, begged Miss Spider. Think, James, think. Come on, said the centipede. Come on, James. There must be something we can do. Their eyes waited upon him, tense, anxious, pathetically hopeful. There. Look at him. No. Chapter 20. The last one of the week. There is something that I believe we might try, James Henry Trotter said slowly. I'm not saying it'll work. Tell us, cried the earthworm. Tell us quick. We'll try anything you say, said the centipede. But hurry, hurry, hurry. Be quiet and let the boy speak, said the ladybird. Go on, James. They all moved a little closer to him. There was a longish pause. Go on, they cried frantically. Go on. All the time while they were waiting, they could hear the sharks threshing around in the water below them. It was enough to make anyone frantic. Come on, James, the ladybird said, coaxing him. I'm afraid it's no good after all, James murmured, shaking his head. I'm terribly sorry, I forgot. We don't have any string. We need hundreds of yards of string to make this work. Oh, what sort of string? Asked the old green grasshopper sharply. Any sort, just so long as it's strong. But my dear boy, that's exactly what we do have. We've got all you want. How? Where? The silkworm, cried the old green grasshopper. Didn't you ever notice the silkworm? Oh, she's still downstairs. She never moves. She just lies there sleeping all day long. But we can easily wake her up and make her spin. And what about me, may I ask? Said Miss Spider. I can spin just as well as any silkworm. What's more, I can spin patterns. Can you make enough between you? Asked James. As much as you want. And quickly? Of course, of course. And would it be strong? The strongest there is. It's as thick as your fingers. But why? What are you going to do? I'm going to lift this peach clear out of the water, James announced firmly. You're mad, cried the earthworm. It's our only chance. The boy's crazy. He's joking. Go on, James, Ladybird said gently. How are you going to do it? Centipede. Skyhooks, I suppose, jeered the centipede. Seagulls, James answered calmly. The place is full of them. Look up there. Oh. Look at them. Caw-caw. Oh. They all looked up and saw a great mass of seagulls wheeling round and round in the sky. I'm going to take a long silk string, James went on, and I'm going to loop one end of it around a seagull's neck, and then I'm going to tie the other end to the stem of the peach. He pointed to the peach stem, which was standing up like a short, thick mast in the middle of the deck. Then I'm going to get another seagull and do the same thing again, then another, and another. Ridiculous, he shouted. Absurd! Poppycock! Balderdash! Madness! And the old green grasshopper said, How can a few seagulls lift an enormous thing like this up into the air, and all of us as well? It would take hundreds, thousands. There's no shortage of seagulls, James answered. Look for yourself. We'll probably need 400, 500, 600, maybe even 1,000. I don't know. I shall simply go on hooking them to the stem until we have enough to lift us. They'll be bound to lift us in the end. It's like balloons. You give someone enough balloons to hold, really enough, then he goes up. And a seagull has far more lifting power than a balloon. If only we have the time to do it. If only we're not sunk first by those awful sharks. You're absolutely off your head, said the earthworm. How on earth do you propose to get a loop of string round a seagull's neck? I suppose you're going to fly up there yourself and catch it? The boy's dotty, said the centipede. Let him finish, said the ladybird. Go on, James, how would you do it? With bait. Bait? What sort of bait? With a worm, of course. Seagulls love worms, didn't you know that? And luckily for us, we have here the biggest, fattest, pinkest, juiciest earthworm in the world. You can stop right there, the earthworm said sharply. That's quite enough. Go on, the other said, beginning to grow interested. Go on, go on. Well, the seagulls have already spotted him, James continued. That's why there are so many of them circling around, but they daren't come near to get him, while all the rest of us are standing here. So this is what... Stop, cried the earthworm. Stop, stop, stop. I won't have it. I refuse. I... Be quiet, said the centipede. Mind your own business. I like that. My dear earthworm, you're going to be eaten anyway, so what difference does it make whether it's sharks or seagulls? I won't do it. Well, why don't we hear what the plan is first, said the old green grasshopper. I don't give a hoot what the plan is, cried the earthworm. I'm not going to be pecked to death by a bunch of seagulls. You will be a martyr, said the centipede. I shall respect you for the rest of my life. So will I, said Miss Spider, and your name will be in all the newspapers. Earthworm gives life to save friends. But he won't have to give his life, James told them. Now listen to me. This is what we'll do. And you have to wait 3 days to find out what happens next. Wow. Ish. Hey, this is a game for you guys. Try and do a Yorkshire or a Northern accent and jump into a Welsh accent. Back to... It's so hard, I tell you. Oh! But hey, it was good fun. Marvellous. Right then, I'll see you on Monday at 5:30, God willing. Stay well, stay healthy. Don't go near people. I know some shops have slackened their defences, but, you know, this thing isn't over yet, so we've got to stay strong, okay? Yeah, you're with me. Cool. Have a fab weekend, have wonderful rest, and I will see you on Monday. Until then, my friends, goodbye. Oh, and also, these are now going to be on YouTube, so do share them if you would like to. Marvellous. They're all on YouTube. Hey!